And good morning. Hang on, that level looks very high. I just got to take that down a couple of notches. Do we have audio now? That's the important thing. I don't know sign language. Sounds, yes, okay. So, good morning everybody. I got here this morning only maybe 15 minutes ago, and when I walked in, I pulled up my phone to turn on the monitors and the lights and everything else, and I couldn't access my Node-RED dashboard. Turns out that the Raspberry Pi that was running it had crashed or something, so I had to reboot that and then get everything turned on. And there's more of a story as to why this intro may have failed. We'll get to that in just a second, but first I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. So, one of the things I'd wanted to do was to have an Aboriginal business ready to to highlight them at the start of the stream, but because I was so disorganized, I didn't have one sorted out, so sorry about that. Good morning everybody. Tassie Bob, Delane, Mitchell, DIY, Johnny, Gerald, Intermittent, Dodgy, Stephen, Michael. Who else is there? I probably missed a few. Mad Techie. Alright, so... yeah, last night was my sister's 50th birthday party. And my other sister flew down from Canberra for it, which was really cool because I got to talk to her and my brother-in-law for ages last night, which was great. I don't get much of a chance to see them in person, so that was very, very cool. But, okay, let's see if I can... I'm going to switch to my phone as a portable camera because I want to show you something really, really cool. Now, what do I need? Droid cam. See, I'm totally disorganized. I am getting there. Okay, droid cam. Can this... I'm just going to check something on... yes, okay, that is working. All right, we will switch to that view in just a second. So, I've got to set the scene for this story. And I've already mentioned this on Discord, so for some of you this won't be news, but I'll give you some of the background to it. So Monday week ago, so 2 weeks ago from tomorrow, I had a rather bizarre and incredibly crappy day. And I was in one of those states where it's hard to describe. Basically, there was no reason for anything. It was like, what the hell is the purpose? And I was just like a huge vacuum. And so I barely slept that Monday night. The Tuesday morning after that, so almost 2 Tuesdays ago, I came in here, and because I'd had very, very little sleep and I was still, like, my head was in a really bad place, I was feeling really, really on the edge and not able to deal with anything. And for a while, like when I first came in the morning, and also I'm not saying this for pity or anything like that, this is just, you know, being open and honest about the situation I'm in. So I came in on the Tuesday morning. For a while, I was sitting here literally just with my head on the bench and couldn't think properly. And so my friend Steve phoned, and like he called me, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something like that. And I could barely even speak. I couldn't really talk to him on the phone, so I ended up having to hang up. And then a little while later, sort of mid-morning or so, I got a very cryptic phone call from Sion, and I've got to be a little bit careful about what I say here because the person behind all of this wants to remain anonymous. So Sion said, someone has wanted to send me a care package because they'd seen some of the things that I've been going through and Like my emotional state over the last couple of months hasn't been that great, and they wanted to do something to help me out. So, and they wanted to do it secretly. So they'd been in contact with Sion. Sion had arranged some shipping information, and they'd put together a package to send me. And tracking showed that the package was sitting at my local post office. So the Bayswater Parcel Distribution Centre is like 400 metres away. I can walk there in a couple of minutes. And it was sitting there, ready to pick up, and I should go and get it. So this all happened while I was in this state of mind where my head was just a vacuum. And yeah, so I walked around, grabbed the parcel, and it was like physically quite large. I don't know what I was expecting. Yeah, anyway, got this big package, brought it back around, sat down here, grabbed the knife, cut it open, and hang on, I'm going to switch to my phone. If I can do a scene change here in OBS. No, I don't want to do a scene change in OBS. I want to change to camera 8. Let's see if this works. Okay, so this is now the feed from my phone. Hopefully you can still hear me. And there is something different about my desk here. So this is my desk, a couple of stream decks here, and look what's in the back. Check this out. It's an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. This is the 8-channel version. It's got 4 DVEs, so I can do multi-way picture-in-picture, and it's got the ISO function, which means I can record to a disc. This basically is going to change my life in terms of how I can do live streams, but also recording videos. So it's gone from, hang on, I'm going to go and grab it. Sorry about any induced seasickness. Hopefully you won't. This won't make you feel too bad. Here we go. So this is the ATEM Mini Pro that I've been using for the last while. This is the 4-channel video mixer, and so that has now been replaced by the 8-channel video mixer with the 4 digital DVEs, so that I'll be able to do things like bring on the UT61 multimeter overlay, and I'll be able to do things like show microscope feed and overhead feed and face camera at the same time, or different combinations of things like that I just could not do before. So now I've got to switch back to camera 1 and aha. So anyway, yeah, so I know who sent it to me. I've got the person's name, but they asked to remain anonymous. But anyway, I cut this packet open and saw that, and because of the state of mind that I was in at the time, I just totally lost it. I just sat here and cried. But it's one of those things where, or one of those lessons where you can be feeling at absolute rock bottom and the worst you can imagine, and something unexpected, thanks to Sion, came along and just changes everything. So now, things don't fix problems like that. Having a thing as significant as it is, it doesn't fix the problem, but it was the feeling that someone, and also I should say that it's someone who I didn't know before this. It's not a name I recognized. It's someone who has been watching the streams but not participating, like not interacting, just watching, and decided to do something. And it was the feeling that there are so many people out there that that will do something nice for someone else just because they want to. And yeah, that was a huge thing. Gerald said, "Anonymous, you're awesome." Yes, Anonymous is awesome. Yeah. Secret Santa, says Mitchell. That was, yes, that was amazing. So that was my strange story from a little while ago. I've just got to exit out of DroidCam on my phone. Come on, it's locked. There we go. Okay. Hang on, why is DroidCam still running? I've got to actually explicitly kill it. There we go. I think that'll fix it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, Ray, g'day, thanks for coming along. So, there are a couple of topics. No, okay, I should mention, there is the unboxing that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago with all of the gear from Josh. So this is the OXRS stuff. That box is still sitting on the bench just back to my back right, over the starboard stern. And yes, Johnny says, nice to see so many channel members. Yeah, that's because so many of them were donated last week or whenever it was. Yeah, they probably won't continue, but it's nice to have so many just for 1 month at least. Yeah. Now, Josh sent me this package a while ago now. I think it was a couple of months ago. And in it is a whole bunch of OXRS stuff. So there are light switch related things, input devices. I actually haven't even really looked at it. I cut the box open because I wanted to see what it was. It was one of those packages that arrived, and I thought, I don't know, like, I knew it was from Dentistries, so Josh, but I didn't know what was in it. And I opened it and decided what I should do is do this as a proper unboxing. And so probably next week, Josh is going to join me live on the stream, and we're going to go through all of the things. Oh, Tassie Bob, thank you. And we're going to go through all of the stuff that's in the box, which is really cool because I really, really want to get back into OXRS related projects. I know the Rack 32 has been out of stock for ages. I've been really having trouble with stock issues over the last few months. Part of the problem is that I've had a lot of pressure from commercial clients to produce boards for them, and the result is that all of the spare time that I have, not really so much spare, the time that I have ends up going on to those commercial clients, and it's very hard for me to set aside, say, okay, I'm going to spend today just assembling Rack 32s, or whatever the thing is. So my status boards, the screens that are up on the wall up there, they are showing lots and lots of red, lots of products out of stock. I've got to do something about that. But I'm also really interested in getting OXRS running, particularly with the IoT Access Point project, because I want to be able to integrate the access point into the OXRS infrastructure so that from the management interface we have a way of updating access points, doing things like pushing out configurations to them, like setting the SSID. And of course it's going to, the whole point of the IoT Access Point project is to do personal pre-shared keys. So what it's going to need is configuration of not just the SSID and the password, or the pre-shared key technically, the PSK, for that network. We're also going to need user management. We're going to need some kind of a device management system where we can do something like, say, okay, I'm going to add a SON-off and this is its password. And then you commission the SON-off and it connects to your Wi-Fi using its unique password. So there needs to be some management interface that's going to push those configurations out to all of the Wi-Fi access points and make sure that it all works nicely. Tassie Bob says, Lunch monitor is in the house. Yes. Peter is here with a squirrel. Yeah. I should do some more of the little emoji icons. When I was setting up the membership a couple of weeks ago, or last week, whenever it was, one of the options is to add emojis or just little icons that members can use in chat. And yeah, Steve is a service. And I was just getting through the process of filling in the form. And so I just uploaded 3. So the squirrel, the gecko, and what was the other one? I can't remember. So yeah, I should do some more. Oh, there we go, the multimeter. Yes, the UT61E. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, and Jip as well, outside the box. Now, right before I came online, I was looking at, so I don't know if he's here. Oh, DIY, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And TNT WX Watcher says, thanks again, Johnny Bergdahl, for giving me a membership 2 weeks ago. I will be re-upping. Yeah, so Johnny was extremely generous a couple of weeks ago and gifted a whole bunch of channel memberships. And yeah, that was very, very generous. Thank you. Andrew Elwell, I don't know if Andrew is here watching at the moment. Last night, Andrew was talking about an interesting idea on Twitter. So this was a thread. Hang on, I am going to, let's see. Let's pull up. It's all public, so I'm pretty sure this will be okay. We can go to here. So, Twitter. This was yesterday, last night. Andrew posted this interesting question. Anyone have a defined set of meteorological conditions when mozzies are likely to be out and bitey? Setting up a home assistant automation so that bug zapper switches on if the outside light over table is on and no wind and whatever. So this is a, it's probably a bit too small for everybody to read, but I just read it to you anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. So this is an interesting concept, and what Andrew is getting at here is thinking beyond. So part of this is the specifics of the question. It's the whole thing about how do you know when there are likely to be mozzies around? Like, that is a very specific question, but it's broader than that. What this is doing is getting into the mindset of home automation or control of devices as being more than just pressing a button on your phone to turn something on and off. It's that classic thing, as my friend Andy has said many times, if that's all it does, then you just built yourself a big remote control toy. It's not automation. So this is something for everybody to start thinking about as well. What different conditions or automations could you think of that that you might want to influence your environment? Now, the really obvious one is presence detection, because then that can tie into things like lighting control and a whole lot of other things, environmental control like heating and cooling. But I found this particular post interesting because it's really thinking about what ways can an automation system look at the environment and respond to that environment without you having to manually say, oh, there are lots of mozzies around, I'm going to turn on the bug zapper. Have the system use some kind of input, and this is really Andrew's question, is what would that input be? Is it that it's night, the exterior light is on, and there's no wind, because wind tends to disperse mozzies, But then what other conditions? Because those conditions can be met at any time of year, but only at certain times are you likely to have problems with mozzies. So would the other conditions be based on date, like period of the year? Would it be humidity? What is it? So anyway, that's a pretty cool thing. Oh, Richard. Wow. Richard just gifted 10 Superhouse memberships. That is really cool. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, laser sharks to zap the mozzies, says Mitchell. Yeah. So, yeah, Adam says, this is another example. Adam says, a car or temperature and humidity sensor automatically switches on the extractor fan in the bathroom when someone takes a shower. Derivative to check humidity rise. Yeah, cool. So derivative to check humidity rise. So what that means, for those who don't understand that sentence, is it's looking at the curve. And so derivative in the mathematical sense, when you are when you're looking at the delta, so you're seeing the humidity is rising. So you're not necessarily looking for a threshold where, say, the humidity goes above, I'll just make up a number, 70%, then you know that someone is having a shower and you've got to turn on the exhaust fan or the extraction fan. Instead, what you do is look for the change in humidity. So it might start from a very low level and go up a bit, or it might start from a fairly high level and go up a bit. In both cases, what you're detecting is the change, so the delta over time. Yeah. Yeah, Intermittent says, oh wow, memberships flying around. And Intermittent doesn't have one. Oh, that's sad. So, yeah, we were talking about this last week, I think it was. So, hopeful, yeah. The way these gifted memberships are dished out, I don't know how it's done. Someone mentioned that it's random. So if someone buys a certain number of memberships to be given out, then yeah, maybe you can click the little thing up the top to claim it. I don't know. But yes. There's an yep, it's random, Johnny says. Yeah, up the top of the chat window. Hang on, I'm going to bring up this. You see this little thing up the top here. So we've got, oh, Tassie Bob just gifted 5 memberships as well. This is like raining memberships. Okay, I'm as random as they come. So I'm not going to click either of these because I don't want to claim a membership. But you can see here, for example, this is Tassie Bob and this is Richard. And it's showing the memberships that have been gifted. And it looks, the thing is decreasing as if it is allocating them. It's like a little fuel gauge. But what happens if you click on it? If one of you clicks on it, who is not currently a member, does it then allow you to claim one of those memberships? You should give that a go. Someone please try it. Yeah, Intermittent, you need a membership. Click on one of those things at the top of the chat and just see if it gives you one. There's a time limit. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Adam, I'm not asking you to pay for anything. Nothing happened. Okay, thanks, Gerald. All right, so I don't know how those memberships are allocated. Oh, it's just applied a few. All right. Anyway, so there were, when I brought up this thing that Andrew was talking about, there were really 2 outcomes from this. 1 or 2 interesting aspects to it. One is this whole question of what parameters or what circumstances would you consider to be a useful way to guide the behavior of your automation system? And yeah, there are fairly straightforward things like time, but I found Andrew's question to be interesting because it goes so much broader than that. It goes into more of the way that we as humans perceive our environment and react to it and make decisions based on what we're seeing, which is an amalgam of a whole lot of inputs and different bits of information. So that is, yeah, UV level. That's an interesting one, Gerald. Yes. Okay. So then that led on to this. So Andrew posted this picture. I'm not even sure what that picture is. That's obviously a nest. Oh, I see. So the nest is sitting on top of a PowerPoint. That looks like it's not an exterior GPO, it's just a regular GPO with something plugged into it. Probably the bug zapper outside. But there was another follow-up that Andrew posted. And once again, I'm pretty sure it's okay for me to be doing this because this is all on Twitter. I'm just clicking through links that are publicly available anyway. I don't think I'm revealing anything too personal here. So Andrew then followed up with this, saying, I should also type this up properly and stick it to the inside of the switchboard rather than just the Sparky's notes as they did the install. So there are these, looks like it's on a piece of cardboard. Feeds, backdoor, sander kitchen, bathroom light and fan, bath vanity. So it looks like these are, switches, backdoor, sander kitchen. So this is a list of switches and maybe, power feeds. So this would be outputs 1 through 13, the things that are controlled. And then down here, switches, these are the input channels. And when I saw this, it reminded me of this thing that I did quite some years ago, which I'm going to try to find. I'm going to drop you off that, and so that you can't see what I'm doing, because I'm going to open my Google Docs and try to find a document. Somewhere in here is, no. Sorry. Cabling guide. Where is it? Cabling guide. Template? I can't even remember what it's called. Maybe it's in one of my other Google accounts. I have way too many. Cabling, here we go. Why is this in my personal Google account instead of the Superhouse Google account? I don't know. Okay, view. Let's make it biggerized. You heard that correct. I said biggerized. And switch to this view again. So this is based on a document that I did for myself a few years ago, many years ago now, and then I made a copy of it and kind of sanitized it. I'm just mentioning this because it could be useful for people. Let's try. I'm going to drop the link to this in. No, I'm not going to drop that link. I'm going to drop a different link. I'm going to drop an episode link because I did a video about this at the time. It was preparing your home automation system for death. A very morbid title. There we go. Episode 23. And I did this after Chris Yeo passed away from cancer. I'm going to drop this in. Oh, Iggy! Iggy's here. Yes, I am well today. Thank you for asking. Electrician's name explains the fire. Yeah. So what I did was create this document. Yes, electrician. Yes, fix it with fire. the idea is that this is a document that you can make a copy of and then go through and fill it out as a record of the cabling in your house, but also various other bits of information that will be useful. So I'm just going to scroll through this kind of briefly. Contact information. The whole idea is that this is something that you can maintain as a Google Doc and then regularly print out a hard copy and stick that hard copy inside your switchboard somewhere, or just like next to your switchboard, so that in the future, if an electrician comes along and they want to figure out where everything is, they've got everything they need right there in front of them. So contact details for the owner of the property, and contact details for your regular electrician, just in case someone new comes in. This can be useful for you as well, or for the homeowner. So you have a problem, instead of having to go and look up, oh, that electrician that came here 3 years ago, where are their contact details? Like, you've just got it right there. It's at the switchboard. And then there is a record of other stuff as well. So stick in your Wi-Fi details, information about your ISP. So if your internet connection goes down, you can grab this hard copy and it'll have a phone number in somewhere, tech support phone number in there, and you can keep a record of fault history if you really want to. I don't bother doing that anymore. Cable TV, that sort of thing. Locations of different things, like where your racks are, if you have server racks at home, or patch panels, like patch panel locations. So you can put a floor plan in here, an explanation of the labeling scheme. So for people that haven't done labeling on their data connections, there are different schemes around. This is as good a scheme as any, I suppose. This is the one I've used in my house. It's based on the TIA IA 606A standard. So these labels go on things like cables and the ports on patch panels and that sort of stuff, so that you can look at a cable and know exactly where the other end of it is. And then there is a table here that you can fill in with things. These are ports on a patch panel, and then where it goes to and what it does. So you can make a couple of, you can use as many of those as you want based on however many patch panels you want. There's a power labeling scheme. As far as I know, there isn't really a standard. There may be, particularly in an industrial environment. I'd be quite interested to know this. At the time that I was doing this, I was not aware of any labeling scheme for power circuits, particularly in domestic environments. So I just did all the labeling using the data labeling scheme, or a simplified version of it. And then this is how all of the cross-links and things are done. Output channels, and if we go back to Andrew's list here, so he's got feeds. This feeds section here, 1 through 13, these are the outputs, and in my case these are controlled by these output relays, and this is just the ID and then where it goes. You can do that as a list as well. I've laid this out. So this physical layout here actually matches the layout in my switchboard. So if you've got this piece of paper in front of you, there are 3 rows of DIN rail mounted relays in the switchboard, and the positions of the relays correspond to what's in this particular documentation. So if, for example, you wanted to pop the relays for the main bathroom, so you wanted to pull out the bathroom fan, bathroom lights, and bathroom sconces, you can just look at this diagram and it's those relays right there. That's what controls it. Yes. Tony says, the only standard I have seen is not to document anything. At least it's consistent. Yeah. Right. So Richard said, I do something similar for my parents' home. I'm not there often enough anymore to remember what I did. It helps when you have a lousy memory like me. Naturally, it helps anyone else too. Yeah. A large part of the idea of this is documenting for yourself as well. I long ago gave up on relying on my memory, and I use notebooks for everything. Like So notebooks for specific, this is the one that I happened to grab. I have these little orange notebooks, and I think I just doxed myself. I did. So this is the notebook for Mick Will Make It, and then it sits next to that pick and place machine, and it's got notes in it that I make along the way, like board positions, and there's lots of random stuff in there. And then if I come back to that sometime down the track, my notes are right there. Oh, Andrew said, would have been nice if the network cablers at my sister's place had labelled the outlets. They didn't even have all the sockets on a multi-outlet on the same patch panel. What? Oh, that sounds totally random. So what they probably did was just drag all the cables with no consideration whatsoever to matching anything to anything, and then they got to the patch panels and just went terminate, 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 terminate randomly based on where the cables physically just end up lying, and not try to make anything correlate. That is really annoying. Oh, Scott says, can't recall if my memory has ever been any good. Yeah, I can't remember either. I don't remember a time when my memory was good. Now, so this is one of those random streams where I came in here with no plan. No plan at all, other than a general idea that I was going to talk about Andrew's thing on Twitter. Terminate, plug them all in, see ya. Yep. That's right, Chip. At M City at Clayton. Oh, no plan is the best plan. Okay. What now? What now? I had been thinking about doing more of the IoT access point stuff. In fact, what I can do is show you. So when I began all of this and I talked about the ATEM Extreme ISO, so I haven't even got it turned on. This is how I didn't turn all the cameras on when I arrived. But where's the power switch on this one? There it is. Okay. The focus is probably all screwed up as well because for some reason Panasonic cameras do not remember their focus position when you power cycle them. I can have it in manual focus mode, turn it off, turn it back on, and the focus is gone. Very, very annoying. So let's see if everybody stretch. Oh, Iggy says, so about this COVID rubbish, starting week 4 and still a bit chesty. Yeah, oh, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that you've been going through that, Iggy. Yeah. I hope you managed to get through that. I've heard of so many people. It seems to be so variable. I've heard from quite a few people who experienced it as kind of like a mild cold, and I know of people that have just been totally destroyed by it, and a long time later, like a year later, are still in pretty bad shape. It seems to be quite variable, and so one of the people who has been having a really hard time of it, and the thing is that I don't pretend to be a doctor, but just my observation, it doesn't seem to have a huge amount of correlation to things like physical fitness either, because one of the people I know who has been really knocked hard by it is very fit. Someone who, who you would not expect to have problems with illness and getting over illness, but it's just knocked him very hard over the space of many, many months. What was I doing? That's right. No. Okay, back again. Okay. IoT access point, that's what I was getting at. Because after the last live stream where I showed some of this, random light switches, get those out of the way, I put some more of the parts on the AP. So if we go to that, yeah, but before I get into this, just wanted to mention the two things that this ATEM is going to make a huge difference with. First is live streams. The problem that I had with the 4-channel ATEM was I just didn't have enough inputs, even with an external video switcher, an HDMI switch, to be able to bring everything in. So this now at least means that I can have separate inputs for the overhead camera, for the microscope, the front camera, the capture of OBS for the intro and outro, capture of the screen. So we're up to 5 already, and which is more than I can do with this. And now it means that I can also bring in other sources, and I can do multi-level composition so that I can overlay things like the UT61E, like the multimeter information. Because what I really want to be able to do is have a view like this with overhead camera plus face camera, and the up on the side of the screen have the instrumentation like the multimeter view, maybe bring in things like my lab power supply, signal generator, oscilloscope, that sort of stuff would be quite useful to have up on the screen. But the problem is that I couldn't add that in as an extra layer because I didn't have enough channels on the video mixer. Not in terms of inputs, but in terms of being able to do composition of multiple inputs at the same time. So, yes. Someone mentioned Steve. Okay, Steve is going to come and say hello. Steve is here. I need a Steve cam. Actually, maybe I could do that. I could have another camera dedicated to Steve and have him sitting somewhere and just have him up in the corner of the view somewhere. And it needs to be automated. Yes, we still need to automate Steve. Maybe that's something to do on a live stream. Do a Steve. So what I can do is, outside of a live stream, yeah, picture-in-picture Steve, exactly. Steve Povcam, put a camera in his eye. In the past, what I've done is had the script that links to the chat from the live stream to enable the party poppers to be triggered by super chats. What I can do is set up that same code. How would we do this? Probably, my answer to everything is MQTT. I think what I would do is before a stream, so not while you're all sitting here watching as I fiddle around with it, I would get the script set up so that it's watching the chat and oh, John McRae says, I should have said hello. It's been a while, so long I've never seen Steve. That has been for a while. Mad Techie says, buy a Roomba. We can do this. So, Steve turned left. I'm going into classic ADHD territory now, where my brain is going in so many different directions. All right. Let's do this. I'm going to go for... It's going to be kind of noisy and annoying, but... I don't know whether you heard that little beep, and I don't know if Steve is going to... I need some blue tack. Some blue tack for Steve. Now this is... switching to that view. No, that view didn't work. Okay, I want that view. Okay. So, Steve, you are going on an adventure. And go. Maybe he needs his hard hat on. What are you doing? Just spinning around. No, don't go straight for the cables. For some reason, it always just goes straight for the cables and gets itself tangled up. It's like it's determined to get in there. Come back out this way. Steve cam. That's annoyingly loud. Steve can sit there on the camera for a while. No, not on the camera. He can sit there on the mower. So, why do you all do this to me? I am simultaneously trying to follow about 7 different mental threads. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Okay, access point. This is back to where we were. Yeah. Tassie says, Blue, take your phone to the Roomba to get a Steve view of his travels. I do want to, I want to put a camera on it. That would be funny. But the problem is that this particular Roomba, it's a really, really old one. This is one of John Spencer's old Roombas. It's a Roomba Discovery, and it's kind of rubbish. It's better than nothing. I use it here, but it can't find its docking station, so it can't go back and recharge. And yeah, there's no LiDAR on it. It just bumps into things, so it just keeps bashing its way around the room. And it doesn't clean particularly well, but it's better than nothing. Yeah, Chip says that would be dizzyifying. And part of the problem is that, the reason I was mentioning all of this is, if I attach a camera to it, the view is going to be just bouncing around all over the place like crazy. Yes, so back to where I was. Where was I? That's right, I was saying what I will do, this is what I will undertake to do. Okay, I will work on a script which is derived from what I was previously doing with the super chats firing off the party poppers, but instead of firing off party poppers, what I will do is just get it to publish an event to MQTT, because that is something that I can then use as a trigger. So I don't know if we want different types of events. So looking at Steve, if I grab Steve and bring him back up here, I'll take him off his trusty steed. Then how can we automate Steve? I mean, moving his arms is the obvious thing. That would be cool. But it doesn't really have a whole lot of other mobility. So I think the simplest thing is just going to be to make him be able to move his arms somehow. So anyway, the reason I was mentioning that is I'm thinking through to what sort of trigger events it could have, and whether there is any value in having a differentiation, like different types of events causing different actions. Yeah, Steve clap. Steve needs a voice. Yes. Yes. So you can, Mitchell and Scott both said the same sort of thing. We can rebuild him, yes. Let's get back to building Skynet, says the Celtic Beast. Yes, we will get back to the IoT access point in just a second. Did a unicorn animation. All right. Text-to-speech into Steve. Yeah, okay. There are lots of things we can do with Steve. So if an event happens in the chat, I can have that just publish something to MQTT, which then gives us the ability, it gives us the decoupling or the input that we need to then be able to see that event and then make something happen. And then we can put a controller in Steve, and when it sees one of those events on MQTT, it can do something like wave or clap or whatever. We will figure that out. Yeah, outside the box says best not to outlay $6 million. Yeah. Waving a little flag, yeah. It'd be nice to have his eyes change color. But, you know, like in movies how robots change color from blue to red when they go into evil mode, just so that everybody knows they're in evil mode. The classic movie cliche. Yeah, Ross says, yeah, parsing the action to the MQTT message would work well. Yeah, and then we could get some, that way you could do the processing at the other end where it's looking at the message. You could decide whether there is something specific about the message that dictates how it should behave. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Just pass it through. I wonder if that opens up any possible attacks, because I'd need to sanitize the input. I never really thought through this, because there are things like SQL injection attacks. If you have the ability to query a database and you can change the query in some way, then you can do bad things. So if I make a script that watches the chat on the stream, and then it takes particular types of messages, like say a super chat. When you do a super chat, you can attach a message to it. If it took that message and then published it to MQTT, is there any possibility that the message could be crafted in a way that it would be an attack on the system somehow? Now, it's not really quite like SQL injection, where you can sometimes add a semicolon to terminate a query and then add your own query, like, you know, drop star or whatever. Yeah, MQTT doesn't parse messages. Yes, I know, Johnny. But what happens at the other end? The thing that receives the MQTT message. Now, in this particular case, I don't see any particular problem, because all it's going to be is something like an ESP32 subscribe to MQTT, watching for messages, and then doing specific things. It's not like you could make it catch fire by sending it an incorrect message. But I'm just thinking through this. I'd never really thought through the whole question before of the danger of something like an SQL injection attack being applied over MQTT. Anyway. Right. Adam P. Little Bobby tables, yes. Yeah, as long as you don't need compare strings, I wouldn't be worried. That's right. It's Michael, can't make it catch fire? Challenge accepted. Oh. Yes. David T says, wildcard topic subscription on the receive side could cause unexpected side effects. If the receive side received a command that caused it to subscribe to something, then yes. Yeah, I can think through very contrived ways that it could be a problem, but you would almost have to be going out of your way to make a system that accepts raw, unfiltered input and then does dangerous things with it. So anyway, I might be wasting everybody's time, but it was just one of those little neuron fire things, and I suddenly thought, injection attacks over MQTT. I wonder if that's even a thing. Yeah. So, all right, finally, I'm going to get back to here. Back to here. So as you can see, I've done a little bit more since we assembled the board. Oh, and the other thing is, hello, that face cam is in the wrong place for when I'm over here at the bench. So one of the things I'm going to be able to do now, I've got all those extra inputs on the ATEM, is I'm going to put a second face cam over here near the bench and then switch to it when I go to the overhead view. Yeah. Scott says, wasting time on the stream? That's what we came here for. Yes. So, yes, I've got a little bit of a, I feel a little bit chesty, but it's not because I'm sick, it's because I overexerted myself yesterday, being stupid. Once again, did a Muay Thai class and then rolled straight on into a Jiu-Jitsu class. So I was rather wrecked by the end of that. Now, Raspberry Pi Zero W, move that out of the way. No, it's a Raspberry Pi Zero 2, which implies the W because they're all W. Where are we? It was upside down. So what have I done? We did the surface mount parts on stream last time, and I've since then fitted the header for the Raspberry Pi. I've put on the PoE module just here, and I've fitted the connectors along here. So we've got the button underneath, which is the mode button. I actually put this button on largely because this enclosure came with a hole for it, and I thought it could be useful to have a button that for something. And then I realized that it's probably useful as a factory reset button or as a pairing button, because if we want to make this work in a way that's very similar to something like a Unify Wi-Fi access point, then we want to be able to adopt it to the OXRS system, like to the OXRS controller. And powering it up and then pressing that button could put it into adoption mode, or you could hold it in while powering it up and then have it do a factory reset, which would put it into adoption mode. Different things we can do with it. So this button, which is exposed through here, and you can push it with a pen or something, that goes to a GPIO on the Raspberry Pi. So the Raspberry Pi can read the state of that button. It can do things like check it at startup and then do something if it's pressed. So yeah, that'll be useful, I think. Then we've got the AP8C socket here for Ethernet coming in. It's got the LEDs on it for link and activity. And it's mounted on these are all mounted on the bottom of the PCB, as you can see. So then we've got the supporting parts here for the Ethernet connection, and then that goes through here to the W5500. So this is the WIZnet Ethernet Ethernet controller. And then we've got DC in over here. And if I turn on my bench power supply, actually no, I don't even need to do that. I've got a cabled handy dandy 12 volts right here. I don't have the Pi plugged into it at the moment, but I'm just going to stick that in, and you can see that it's come to life. Now the speed LED has come on. This is controlled by the WIZnet chip, even though we've got no Ethernet or anything else. I have a feeling that this is just because the WIZnet chip is not initialized properly. It's starting up in a kind of a blankish state. But this little blue LED next to Steve that you can see on the board there, that I think, is that 3.3 volt rail? I don't remember. Let's find out. This is where can I find myself a ground? There should be one right there. I'm pretty sure that's a ground. What else do we have? Now, is it the other side of that? Yeah, so that is showing 3.4 volts on that point. So that current limiting resistor goes through the LED. And if so I'm getting that's kind of more than I expected. I'm getting 2 and a bit volts across the LED, 2.6 volts. And it's reading 3.4 volts on the 3.3 volt rail right there. So we've got 12 volts coming in on this connection, and then up here we've got the switch mode regulator, and this is based on Austin's design. I ended up ordering the same regulator as he uses on his boards, and got the inductor, and yeah, it all seems to be working nicely, so I'm quite happy with this. I haven't actually put an oscilloscope on it or anything to check things like noise on that power supply, but just as a basic smoke test, it seems to work. Then we've got the PoE regulator here. I haven't actually tested this part of the circuit, so this is something that we could usefully do right now. I can inject power over the network connection without even a network connection, just with a cable. So what I'm going to do is grab, I have a box here of PoE stuff, and hopefully in here I have an injector. There is this a good injector or is it a dodgy injector? I think this is the dodgy one. Yes, look at this. It's got the dodgy death adapter sort of thing on it. It's a Chinese PoE injector, and then it's got one of those adapter cables, adapters stuck on it that I just taped on to stop it falling off. What else do I need? I'm going to need a cable, and I should have a patch lead just hanging up here somewhere around the corner. Here we go. One patch lead. And I also need somewhere to plug this in. Now, what's my scheme going to be here? Okay. I have not yet put any power outlets above the bench. So I'm just going to get under the bench, plug that in. Right now, this is one of those potential who let the smoke out situations. So what we've got here is mains coming into this PoE injector, and there are two ports on it. One port would normally go to the Ethernet switch, one port goes to the device that you're powering. So I'm going to plug that in. Now on the end of this cable should be 48 volts, give or take, approximately. And if I plug this in, this is the moment. Let's see if the smoke comes out. Plug this in here. Ooh, no smoke. And there are LEDs. That's a good sign. So what we should have at the moment is 48 volts coming in on the cable through the Ethernet connector here. And then that is coming out to the inputs on this regulator module. Now that I can do all of this overlaying, I really got to get the multimeter stuff set back up again. So just as a quick sanity test, just unwinding these multimeter leads. Okay, quick sanity test. So handy dandy ground connection. I'm just going to check the 3.3 volt rail, and it is 3.4 volts, close enough. Now where would I find, maybe there. Okay, so that's 5 volts, that's the output from the 5 volt regulator. Where is the output, or where is the input to the regulator? I'm just going to try a couple of these pins on the regulator and try my best not to short across them, because that could be really, really bad. It'd make an exciting stream, but I don't want to destroy this prototype. Okay, so I've got, oh, there we go. Okay, you can't see it unfortunately, but I'm getting 12.9 volts on the input into this switch mode regulator, which is another good sign. So we've got 48 volts coming in, goes to the PoE regulator module, which is outputting 12.9 volts. That 12.9 volts goes into this 5 volt switch mode regulator, which is outputting just over 5 volts, which then goes to the 3.3 volt regulator. Do we? I don't even, oh yes, there we do. There we go. There is the 3.3 volt regulator hiding down there in between the header and the capacitors. So that is providing a 3.3 volt rail for powering things like the WizNet chip. I think. It's so long since working on this design that I'm struggling to remember it. Now, now, question is, why put a 3.3 volt regulator on here when this gives a 3.3 volt output? Because the Raspberry Pi runs at 3.3 volts. It takes 5 volts in and it's got its own onboard 3.3 volt regulator. And 3.3 volts is available on one of these pins. Now, from memory, the current that you can draw out of this is very, very limited. Don't quote me on this, but I think it might be 50 milliamps or some, very small amount like that. So the reason for putting the external 3.3 volt regulator on here is that we've got a secondary 3.3 volt rail, which is used to power the WizNet chip, which can take a couple of hundred milliamps, because driving Ethernet can take a bit of power, and it allows us to do things like connect other devices. On the quick header over here, we can plug in other sensors or whatever else you want to put in here. So maybe you want to draw a bit of power out of it. So having a dedicated 3.3 volt regulator on here gives us a few hundred milliamps to play with. We can power all sorts of things with it. So it's not being used to power the Pi. The Pi is running off the 5 volt rail and then doing its own onboard regulation. So, well, at least that's one kind of half useful thing to have done on the stream today. Actually plug in power over Ethernet and see that it doesn't go up in smoke. Celtic Bee says, I thought you purposely put a glowing blue acorn on there. Yes, that is actually, hang on, I'm going to go back to this view. It's quite small. It's going to be a little bit hard for you to see, but you can see Steve there with the blue power LED. I did actually deliberately align it like this, so it's like Steve is holding the power LED. Let's see if we can get some zoomage happening. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And just get some focus as well. There you go. Yeah, I could have done a slightly better job with that, but you can see Steve is chewing on the power LED. Finding the few meter ones. Okay, what have I missed? Dodgy says, did I make this cup of tea or did Erica just showed up beside me? I don't know, maybe Erica is looking after you. Looks like there's been some interesting chat that I've missed. Oh yeah, so Chip said, automate the camera switching as you did with the microscope. Yes, that's the idea. I am going to automate everything. And the other thing is that it's also going to mean, so who was it? Gerald said shoulder cam. Yeah, so I have this. So I have this head-mounted camera. I can stick this on. Looks kind of stupid, but where does it go? About there somewhere. Anyway, the cool thing about this is that basically you are seeing from my point of view. In fact, the only way it could be better is if there was a camera mounted on my glasses somewhere so that your view is directly what I'm seeing. But what I'm wanting to do is resurrect the auto camera switcher so that when I'm working on something on the bench, you can have the view, like my point of view, as I'm sitting there looking at the bench working on things. And then when I switch to the microscope, switch to the microscope view automatically. And then as I pull my head away, switch back to the first person view. So the idea is that you are always looking through my eyes while I'm building stuff. You're either looking at the bench from my point of view or you're looking through the microscope from my point of view. Right. Cup of tea. Dodgy mentioned a cup of tea. I hit boil on the kettle right just as I walked in, and I never actually got to make myself a cup of coffee. Everyone needs a standby PoE injector. Yeah. Don't recall boiling it. I kind of feel like I do need that coffee, but I'll resist it. Scott says, RPi boards seem to be designed to draw lots of power, then keep it all for themselves. Yes, like all the power. Henrik says, are the LEDs in the 5-volt rail? Yes, they are. The there, the WS2812 LEDs that are around the edge here, these are all on the 5-volt rail, being powered by this little chonker here, but they have 3.3 volt logic. So just up here in the top right corner, you can see there is a transistor and a couple of resistors. That is a logic level shifter, so that the 3.3 volt logic output from the Pi goes, oh, you can actually see the trace. You can see it on the PCB right there. That line there that comes down here and goes to one of the pins on the Pi header is a digital I/O pin that drives the chain of these LEDs. And this is a logic level shifter that takes that 3.3 volt logic coming in here, and it gives 5 volt logic coming out here, which then drives the first LED, and then so it's data in, then data out, and then data out there comes down to data in on the next one, and it just chains its way around the board. So yes, those LEDs are powered off the 5-volt rail. Sausage says, where's the RF stuff on there? That is a very good question. So the carrier board here, I will get some unzoomage. The carrier board here does not have any RF stuff on it at all. And really, all this is a way to have convenient connectors and power management and status display and some sensors. It doesn't do the RF stuff. Now the Pi on here has a location here for a a connector. So there's an RF connector on there. Normally, if you just use a Pi 02 like this, it uses an onboard antenna, and it works okay. You get reasonable performance out of it as a client device connecting to an access point. And you could just use it like this. Like I could just plug this in and then have this as the access point using the onboard antenna, but it wouldn't have great performance. So my plan is to do the mod. It's very hard to see on here. Let's see if I'm going to start this up. Let's see if we can switch to microscopic view. Ah, yes, look at this. Here we go. Let's go for camera 4, actually. That. That. I'll get rid of myself from there. Can't see me anyway. So this is on the Pi 0. Oh, look, it's part of my fingerprint. Doxed my fingerprint. So this is, oh, come on. That's the camera on the microscope being stupid. So this is part of the output from the, oh, brightness is too high. Turn it down. From the, wherever the amplifier, like the output stage, is of the radio on this. So we've got, where is the trace? There, oh, I'm putting it the wrong part of the board. Okay, so we've got this trace that comes along here, and you see these big pads here, which look enormous, but they're actually not. That is a footprint for putting a connector down for an external antenna. It's just not populated. When you buy a Pi 0, it's yeah, it doesn't have this on here. but it is on the PCB. So what you can do is put a 0 ohm resistor across here. This is the, what size are these? These are probably 0201s, I think. Yeah, they look like 0201s. So you put an 0201 resistor across there, which links you through, and you put the socket on here. And then this is part of the matching network that goes to, like, this is the normal antenna, the PCB antenna, whatever it is they do. So I think what you do basically is put the socket on there, you have to bridge across there, and you have to remove this, or maybe cut the track. I'm not sure. I've got to figure that out. It's all documented somewhere. But the idea is to then go to using an external antenna, which will end up being mounted over the top. So this will go on here. The socket is here. Well, it will be here. So then there will be a pigtail that comes out from under the board, wraps around, and then the antenna will sit across there. And the antenna, do I have one here? Bang, crash. I have many of the antennas, but they are in a box. They are not in the, they're not, yeah, sorry. I was distracted by something else. But they're not in the box with my access point stuff. So the antenna will sit across the top here, elevated above the PCB, probably on some little 3D printed mounts, so that it's just inside the cover and as clear of everything else as possible. That was a long-winded answer to where is the RF stuff. Oh, Henrik says, can't you use both antennas? No. The way the output driver works is that it has to be, there is a whole lot of tuning involved. And this is above my pay grade. Then I just saw Mitchell's comment, it'd be better if it was in your pupils, then we'd see exactly what you're seeing. Yeah. That's talking about the camera from the first person view thing. No, is the very short answer. So what you need is for the output of the power amplifier stage to be going into an impedance matched antenna. And there's typically a matching network that, as I said, this is above my pay grade. This is stuff to talk to Sion about. That takes into consideration the physical characteristics of the antenna, and it gets it to the correct impedance to match whatever your device is, which is most typically 50 ohms, I believe, and on some devices like ESP32s, I think it's 35 ohms. It's like some slightly unusual impedance. Scott says, ever try to reuse an 0201 component? Yeah, 0201 sucks. I don't even like 0402. It's, yes. So Henrik said, what do you think about the HC12 module? And my problem is where to find the original ones. I've got... Oh yeah, sorry, just finishing off that final thought about can you use both. Richard says there would be too much reflection due to mismatched impedance if both were used. Yes, that's right. So if you try to use, essentially to run two antennas, what you would be doing is splitting the signal like down a Y path. And there are probably people who could make that work. I'm not one of them. And also, I don't think you really gain anything by using the onboard antenna. If you've got an external antenna, which is going to be superior anyway, then just use that. Yeah. Iggy knows much more about this stuff than I do. And says, having both antennas connected, it is essentially like paralleling 2 by 50 ohm resistors. You get 25 ohms. Therefore, yes, you need impedance matching networks designed to do that. Yeah. So, yeah, there are ways to run multiple antennas, but for this particular application, I'm not going to be tuning it to that sort of level. Mr. Yagi. Yeah. Yes. HC12. I have gone totally blank. I don't know why. What is an HC12? It's going to be one of those things where when I see it, it's a half duplex wireless serial communication module. I don't maybe my memory has totally explodified that out of recollection. I don't remember talking about HC12 modules in the past. So, is it Henrik who was asking that? Someone was asking about HC12 modules and finding an original. Yeah, it's Henrik. HC12 module, and my problem is where to find original ones. I don't know. Sorry. I don't know where to find HC12 modules. Right. Time for a squirrel. Chip says time for a squirrel. Yeah, I just don't know. Maybe someone else knows, Henrik, but I don't know where to find original HC12 modules. Oh, interesting. So E says, if it were a choice of 2 connectors and only one antenna was going to be connected at a time, then yep, on short traces, which is 1/10 to 1/16 of a wavelength, you can just have 2 connectors. Yes. Okay. So 1/10 to 1/16 of a wavelength. Yeah, so you don't want stubs sticking out, causing reflections and emitting. Yeah. Oh, Gerald said he wants to give the client a way to make the choice. What was that in relation to? Replying to dodgy. Yeah. Okay, so the big difficulty with this whole project is just getting pies. So if I do get this to the point where it's all working and other people are interested in it, what I will probably end up doing is selling the carrier board. Maybe the carrier board and an enclosure, I don't know, like as a pair, maybe even pre-installed like this, but without a pie, because I just can't buy pies. But if someone else has a pie and they want to do this project, I could sell them the enclosure with the carrier board in it, and then it's up to them to flash an SD card and stick in a pie and do all of that sort of stuff. Henrik says, time for coffee, John. You can tell, it's that obvious, is it? I can feel it. The thing is that I've gone, for the last 2 months or so, I've pretty much exclusively had decaf coffee. And I can bake a pie. Yes. Mitchell, can you bake me some pies, please? I'm going to go and hit the boil button on the kettle, which I shouldn't need to do because it's a Wi-Fi kettle. But I'll do it anyway. Can you hear all that beeping? There's a truck just over the road. When I arrived this morning, there was a truck parked directly across. Yeah, that's going to be annoyingly loud. There was a truck parked directly across the driveway for my factory. And yes, Mitchell, it is good to stand up. And loaded with logs. And they were unloading it with a with a forklift. So I ended up having to park sort of around the side. I couldn't park in my own driveway. The truck's gone now, but the forklift is still out there moving logs around. Right. So William asked, what is the use case for this? I need a little summary. What I should do, what do I need to do? Oh, what I need at least is to stick this stuff on GitHub, because it's not even there yet. A couple of weeks ago, after I've been talking about this project, there was a message somewhere, I think it might have even just been like a YouTube comment, that was something like, not open source, where is the design for this? And my immediate, it just felt like a narky comment. And my immediate gut reaction to it was, of course it is, it's on GitHub. And then I went and checked, and no, I haven't actually put it on GitHub. So I need to make a repo, stick this board design up on it, and have a little description of what is the use case for this, because yeah, people keep coming along and discovering this project as I'm working on it, and they've missed the previous explanation, and so it's one of the things that keeps coming up. Yeah, so the Celtic Bee says, weren't you going to do a video of changing your Kogan kettle to Tasmoda? Yes, I was. That's one of the things I never got to. I kind of stopped making videos for a while, and I've only just, during the week, started doing some recording again. Dodgy says, let the guy finish making it before complaining about it not being open source. Yes, thanks Dodgy. All right, what are we going to do? I'm going to walk off camera for a while and go and stick some, what am I going to go for? I've got a few options. I've got vanilla latte, hazel. I'm going to go for hazelnut. I'm sure this is totally riveting. Oops. Live stream. Looking at a blank room while I am off making myself some caffeine. So. Here we go. I'm back. I'm back with the this mug. I wonder if it's actually seriously unhealthy. It's probably made out of some plastic that's illegal to use for for food grade use these days. This is this orange plastic cup, which was probably made in the 1970s or 1980s. It was like an old camping cup, and back when I was at school and used to go on camping trips and skiing trips and things, some of them with outside the box, who was here in the chat, I'm pretty sure we probably ended up doing things together. Yeah, I needed a cup that I could take on things like going on ski camping trips, and this was one that my dad had, and it's plastic, so good for throwing in the backpack when you're going off on a ski trip. And he ended up engraving it. You probably can't see, but he used you can just see it says Jonathan across there, and then from the O it goes down, OXER. So I've had this cup since I was in high school. And I don't know where it came from originally. My dad had it. Mad Decky says probably melamine. Yeah. Celtic Beast. Topic, CMD/MQTT/make my bloody coffee. Yes. Problem is that I can't just drink it because I put straight boiling water into it. It's got to cool down for a while. This really is one of those random streams, isn't it? Where I really don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I had a couple of points at a few moments along the way, and then I just lost the plot again. Henrik says, would you check out something in your Discord general? Also, was there a plan? No. Okay, I am going to... All right. Peter says, hate to tell you, John, all your streams are random. Sometimes they are less random than others. Yeah. General channel. Okay, I am opening Discord. Ooh, interesting. Mitchell said, regex for handling squirrel YouTube messages. Cool. Thanks, Mitchell. You could use a hard regex. Basically, it would clear all special characters, split, and that should be safe. Nice. That is interesting. Yeah. Thanks, Mitchell. And I just made this. So what do you think about it? So I think, just see if I'm talking to the right person, I think that Maina in Discord, excuse me, is Henrik in YouTube. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. So Arduino Uno project, easy ODA. Okay, let's have a look at something. Uno. Okay, I'm going to bring this up on screen. I hope this is okay, Henrik. Gotta go to, what view am I looking for? That one. Okay. Arduino. So we've got an Arduino, and then looks like a whole bunch of LEDs. No, these are LEDs and switches. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. So we've got an AREF. Hang on, AREF. Why is AREF connected to... Can I zoom in on this? How does this work? Okay, I'm just doing the browser zoom. So we've got a connection from AREF that comes through to here. That part doesn't make sense to me. Where does this connect? Okay, so we've got a ground connection on this trace, and let's just look at, say, D13. So 13 comes up here, comes to here, it comes to a switch, and it can be switched between either this LED or this LED with a current limiting resistor, and this bottom trace here is, if we follow that all the way through, ground as well. So what does that do? We can either, okay, what I'm trying to get my head around here is what the purpose is. Because what you could do with this is use the switch to select which LED is illuminated, but they are they're biased in opposite directions. Both sides are connected to ground. Why is that? So you can see here, for example, this rail or this net that runs along here is ground. This net is also ground. So that doesn't seem, oh no, that one is 5 volts through there, but that one is, oh okay, yeah, so it's 5 volts or to ground. Okay, puzzling. Yeah. Okay, so it's no, other one is ground, one is 5 volts, right. So you can select which way this particular I/O pin, so AREF, that one right there, that is not useful on the end, because AREF is not a digital input onto the Arduino. It is a, well, it's a pin that's used for setting the analog reference voltage. So let's not get into that right now, but if we just look at the others, let's just look, and that could be used to either turn the, if you're using it as an input, you could detect which way the switch is. And if you're using it as an output, you could use it to turn an LED on or off depending on whether on the position of the switch. Okay. Yeah, so Johnny has asked the critical question, which is, what is the point of the board? So what's the objective here? What are you trying to achieve? Now here's a view of the board. So it's done as a shield, and it's got all of the LEDs and things on little wings that stick out past the outline of the normal Arduino footprint, and then the switches are mounted on top. Okay, cool. Thanks, Henrik. Did I just impersonate Max Headroom? I hope so. Yeah, and as Tony pointed out, you can halve the number of resistors by moving them to the switch common. So if we come up here, the switch common here. So what you could do is, if we just look at this one, for example, this resistor and this resistor could both be removed, and you just put one resistor in here on pin 2 of the switch, which is the common. So Tony is absolutely correct there, because it's only ever going to be, oh hang on, which rail is that? Ooh, I have a feeling, no, you couldn't. Oh, hang on. Because, oh yes, you could, yes. I thought for a moment there was a danger there, because this rail is 5 volts, that rail is ground, and it could be forward biased through both LEDs, but that would only be the case if the switch was shorting directly between these two poles, which it should never be able to do, because otherwise you would have essentially two LEDs in series directly between the 5 volt and ground rails, which would not be good. But that situation isn't possible unless this switch really screws up. So I think that's safe. Michael says there was a car park in East Melbourne for years with max headroom over the entrance instead of clearance. Yeah, I seem to vaguely recall seeing that sign in a car park somewhere. All right, so Henrik's explanation. You can check the button status. So if your code says if the input is high, then do that, and you can switch the right LED to check if the switch is pressed other way as well with low. Yes. Yeah, outside the box. That is a part of the joke of Max's name, as it was a common sign in the 70s. Yeah. So the max headroom, it's not that the clearance signs were named after max headroom, it's that max headroom was named after the clearance signs. Yeah. Oh, Gerald made a good point. If the LED has a different color, you might want a different resistor for each color. Yes. If you want constant levels of illumination, so consistent levels of illumination, say you've got red and green resistors. Well, that's not a great example. Green can tend to be a little more intense. No, intense, but it tends to have a higher forward voltage drop. Anyway, different colored LEDs they can have different voltage drops, and they can have different different levels of illumination for the same amount of forward current. And the blue ones are the ones that really get you. So blue LEDs tend to be extremely efficient at producing a very intense level of illumination with a very small amount of forward current. So if you have a blue LED and a red LED on the same power supply with the same current limiting resistor, the blue LED will look way brighter than the red LED. So what's pretty common is if you've got multiple LED colors in a circuit, is to have different values for the current limiting resistor for each color, so that you end up tuning the level of illumination to make them about the same. Now you can actually see, if I switch to the overhead view, you can see here that I have really screwed this up. I have not got this tuned on this access point, and you can see that the green LED, it's not as obvious on the camera as it is to me in real life. That green LED is so bright that it leaves spots in my eyes after I look at it. The blue LED is quite dim in comparison. And I have a feeling that I might have used something like 470 ohm resistors on the green LED, and it's probably like a 2K resistor on the blue LED. I could look up the actual things, but this was basically just putting together the first prototype, and then what I would normally do is, having got it to this point, I would then start tuning the resistor values. So if this LED needs to be a bit brighter, I might drop this to like 1.5K. If this needs to be a bit dimmer, so maybe I'd take A and adjust them so that the levels of illumination come out to a more reasonable sort of consistent level. Yeah. Yes, and Richard pointed out something else that's very important. Green seems more intense because human vision picks it up best, different wavelengths. Yeah, because human perception is not linear. We are more sensitive to certain wavelengths than to others, and so the perceived brightness does not necessarily correlate to the actual brightness in terms of lumens or whatever actual measure that you might use. So yeah, it really is about tuning it for perception. Is anyone experiencing dropout? Chip asked. I am in my head. Does that count? I am really dropping out in my head. All right, so I'm experiencing it in my head. You're experiencing it on the internet. John's audio is out of sync. So right. But hopefully it'll resync. Video is way out of focus as well. Is it? Doesn't look like it to me. I need a limiting resistor. Okay, so what I should be doing is going back to something like this view and covering my mouth so that you can't tell that the audio is out of sync, and then it won't be quite as egregiously painful. It'll just be painful, not egregiously painful. Chris says it's good in Tasmania. Yeah, that's because the data falls downhill. It all ends up in Tassie. No, it falls past you and ends up in Antarctica. DIY says, when can we see the IoT project online? That's a good question. Let's I could do something about this right now. It's not exactly the most exciting thing to be watching, but I can come along to here and What have I got? Live streaming, Facebook. What am I doing? I'm doing new repository. What am I going to call this repository? And I'll stick it in the, where will I stick it? In the Superhouse. Look at this. I still have write privileges for the official MariaDB repository, I think. So we could publish it under MariaDB. Superhouse. Okay, what are we going to call it? I kind of have, for a long time, for years, I have been naming repositories after the SKU, or the stock keeping unit, of whatever the project is going to be if it turns into a product. And the result is that the repos all end up looking really ugly, and I don't like fully capitalized things. Like if I just go to, Supper House. Yes, that's what it should be. It shouldn't be Superhouse, it should be Supper House. So what have I got? 137 repos here. But look at this. UT61E Wi-Fi, TFT-BR, AQS, Rack32, Axel Wi-Fi. All of these things they're just named after the SKU, and it's kind of ugly. But if I go back further in time, yeah, there are some like this, like Air Quality Sensor D1 Mini. It's named a bit differently, although that one is a firmware project, not a... Oh yeah, this one was ESP Flash with some lower casing in it. Etheruno was kind of the name rather than the SKU. New repository. I am blathering over doing this. So IOTAP. And the thing is that when in my head, when I see this SKU, I read that as IOTAP, which I suppose is fine. Wi-Fi internet access point. Based, let's see, no, designed for managing IoT devices with personal pre-shared keys. That'll do for now. Public, yes, let's do this, and create repo. See, riveting viewing. Watching me create repos on GitHub. Now, this is the thing. My actual files may not be in a state where I want to just grab it all and commit it right now. Let's have a look at what state they're in. Doink. No, not that. We'll bigify it. All right. Oh, it's already a repo. That's interesting. Git remote. Do I have a... No, I don't have any remotes. Okay, so I had actually set it up as a Git repo. I just hadn't actually committed anything. I hadn't pushed anything. So let's just fix that. I can come back to here. I'm going to do that. And git push origin main. Go. And time to drink. How long is it since I actually did anything? Fix footprint. 2021. October. Look at the date. 7th of October 2021 was the last time I committed to this. So if we come along to this now, it is going to be so absurdly out of date. All right. I've got to do something about this. What do we want to do? Let's have a look in hardware. We'll get rid of that up. I don't know what up is. I've been so slack with not committing as I've been doing this. Okay, so I'm going to do git add iotap dot blah, and what are we going to say this is? This is like a year's worth of random stuff. Major redesign based on Raspberry Pi 0 to, let's just go with that. What else do we want to add? What do we need to add? What's in, I don't even know if I want to show notes. Hang on. I'm going to move this out of your view because I don't know what's in notes. I might have things like passwords and other random things in there. So I'm going to just have a quick look before I do this. RBN attempt, no, this is, oh, yeah, I've got host APD config stuff in here. Oh no, the passphrase is bogus, that's all right. I'm not exposing, oh no. I've got a root password in this file. Okay, I am glad that I pulled this off the screen before I started looking in that notes file. I've got to clean that up. What's in images? I don't know, a screenshot of something. Let's just add it, what the hell. Git add images. What's in resources? Oh, okay, some other reference stuff. That, I think, is Austin's work. That is, I think that's what I was looking at for the power supply information. Let's just added image of, and I'm going to have a look at what that actually is. Let's see what that image is before we commit it. IOTAP images. Yeah, that's okay. Oh, it's the it was the image that I did a little while ago when I was setting up the thumbnail to do a live stream talking about it. Let's yeah, we'll include it. Why not? Added image of board. That'll do. Git push origin main go. And yes, I do still need to add a README. I need to add copyright information. What have we got here? I will copy a directory from, let's see, from OpenKO. Should have a copyright. No, it doesn't. Okay, let's have a look for AQS. Oh, license, yes. I want to copy the license file here, and I'll copy the README here as well. Probably nothing much in this. What is in license? So I've got the BSD license and the Tapple license, which is basically my standard go-to. So what I normally do is apply the Tapple license to the hardware component of the design and the BSD license to the software component. So let's just git add license. And then I just copied in the README from the air quality sensor. So what do we do? IoT Wi-Fi. See this? I don't even know why I'm doing all of this live. Actually, I've been not paying attention to the chat. So I'm sure everybody's left by now. So yeah, I need to, So this all comes back to the question, I can't remember who it was, sorry, someone in chat asked, what's the whole point of this project, which then got me thinking about, I need to make this public and have a place that actually explains it. So let's have a brief go at explaining this. I'm going to put down in words here in the README. So I'll say simple Wi-Fi devices typically don't support, enterprise level Wi-Fi authentication, which requires certificates, let's say, which means they all share a single password. If an IoT device is compromised, the password can be exposed, and changing the password on many devices is painful. This project aims to create a Wi-Fi access point that supports personal pre-shared keys, PPSK, so that each device can be given its own password. Access privileges for any device can then be revoked. Without requiring changes to any other device. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll get rid of most of the other description here. Basic and display, there's a whole lot of stuff there. And this is the classic situation where I'm doing the README, so I make a URL for the project, and there's nothing actually at that yet. G'day README. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Because it breaks my mind when the capitalization does not match the real thing. All right. So is this starting to make a little bit more sense now as a public repo? So now we've got hardware, images, license file. We've got a README that explains what it is. We've got a link that goes nowhere in classic Superhouse style. Drink time. Well, I suppose that's the start. Yes. Oh, look, it started way back in 2020. Oh, I'm so slack. It's like my, it's like a wall of shame. Right. Yeah, the link in the GitHub says, oops, that page can't be found. Yes, that's right. Because I haven't created that page yet. It does not exist. Ah, README may need a tweak. Yes, thanks, Tony. So Tony just pointed out, firmware directory can, no, that, yes, you are absolutely correct. Vim README. Let's vim the README. Firmware, there is no firmware directory. Later there will be, and there's no enclosure directory either. I'm going to need to include information about the source of the enclosure, which I got from SZOMK, my favorite Chinese generic case manufacturer. So I should put information in there about the source of the case as well. Obsolete is the wrong word, but it's close enough. Removed AP case come from? Well, it looks pretty good. It's not 3D printed, right? Yeah, that is correct. It is not 3D printed. It came from SZOMK, and in fact, I'm going to, while we've got this right here, let's find it. I'm going to drag this down out of your site again, because I think that I might have that in the notes document, which is where I've exposed some information that really should not be exposed. So I do want to share that notes document because it's got lots of information about things like using the Raspberry Pi to drive the WS2812s and information on overlays and the temperature sensor, all sorts of stuff like that. So there's lots of useful information in there. It's basically just a document where I just blare all my notes into it. And it includes information about my previous iteration. So the version 1 of this was done with a Rock Pi S instead of a Raspberry Pi from Raja. Right? Yeah. But it's got root passwords and stuff in this document. So I need to sanitize it a little before I add it to the repo and push it up. But those sorts of brain dump notes I find really, really useful, because as I'm working through the process of designing something or iterating, basically just trying to narrow in on getting something working, by keeping notes as I go. This comes back to the conversation earlier about trying to remember things from years ago. Often I'll be working on something and I will think, oh, maybe I should try this, and it's something that I actually did try like a month before and I don't even remember. Or what is even worse is if you are solving a problem, so you figure out, for example, package dependencies and you install these things and then you edit the config file in a certain way and you get it all working and then you try to reproduce it later and you can't remember how you did it. That is really, really frustrating. So yeah, I keep records of all the things I'm doing as I'm working on projects. But the result is that this file is just like a big bleh of lots and lots of copied and pasted command line stuff and config files and things. So including both working and non-working attempts at doing things with notes about what happened. So I am currently scrolling through it looking for the reference to the enclosure. The here we go. Oh, plastic, is that the one? I've got a link here. I'm not sure if this is the enclosure that I ended up with. We will find out in just a moment. No, it's not. But this is an interesting looking one as well. This is another one that I looked at as an option. So this one is more of a square sort of case. The original inspiration for this project came from trying to do like an open source version of a Unify access point, but there are others, like this one looks more like a Cisco access point, and it's quite a nice enclosure. So I would not be averse to trying. I think it might be a little bit bigger. I can't remember, but yeah, that's quite a nice enclosure as well. One of the options. Maybe this one was more expensive. All right, now I'll keep looking. Where is the enclosure that I did actually use? No, it looks like it's not in that document. But I will be able to find it by looking in my purchase history, because I have my ginormous spreadsheet of purchases and I should be able to search through here and find it. Case? Nope. No. Enclosure. Oh yes, I think this is it. Here we go. AK NW40 white. Yes, here we go. So this one, I will bring this up here. No, do not allow. Now this is an AliExpress thing. In fact, I'm going to sign in on here because I am, oh, what is there? Commission rate 0. Damn, I can't give you an affiliate link that'll, so they suck you in with the cheap per unit price and then add the shipping. Now the real tell with this is if you increase the quantity and the shipping doubles, then you know that what they're doing is preloading the shipping with part of the price to offset selling this cheaply. So if I go to 2, oh no, that didn't go up too much. So the shipping went from $14 to $18. So that's not too bad. So if you wanted to order a few of these, it's going up by about $4. The shipping goes up by about $4 each time I add another unit to the quantity. So I suppose you could think of this as being a $13 enclosure plus a few dollars shipping, like the base cost of the shipping. So that's not too bad. So it's the AK NW40. In fact, what I will do while I'm doing this is let's stick this in BIMREAMD and I'll just stick it in here. Enclosure. This is not really a, there should be a bill of materials or something as well, but I'll just stick it in the README for now so that it's captured somewhere. The enclosure is model, what did I say it was? AK NW40. And just stick the URL in there. That'll do. Let's make it a bit neater. So yeah, SZOMK, Shenzhen OMK is a cool company. They make lots of different types of enclosures, and in fact, before I forget, let's add that. Add a link to enclosure. All right. Get out of that, and out of that. And now we should, yeah, so now we've got the link to the enclosure in the README. Nice, we're getting somewhere. There's actually useful information there now. Now, somehow, quite a while ago, I covered up the chat. I have not seen that. All right. Yeah, Ross just said, oh my god, I just looked at SZOMK cases and I recognized like 4 of the DIN rail cases from manufacturers my companies work with. Damn, yes. So for those of you who do not know, SZOMK, like I just showed you, that was an AliExpress link, but it's, I think their site is called China Enclosure or something like that, but the company is SZOMK, and the SZ is the abbreviation for Shenzhen, the city that they operate out of, and they make thousands and thousands of enclosures. So if you want to make a project, if you want to design something and make it look like a professional product for a reasonably low price, they probably have something that will do the job. Now, of course, the classic way as a hobbyist is you go out and buy a standard rectangular box, you know, the thing you get from JCar or whatever, and there are plenty of those, you know, these just regular rectangular boxes with a lid that goes on and screws onto it. And so many hobby projects that you see are made in those sorts of enclosures. But what SZOMK do is make a whole lot of different specialized enclosures. Like, look at this one. There's a weird looking thing. That's pretty cool. Look, it's got a lens assembly in the middle there for a motion detector, and it's got it's got vents all over it. So if you wanted to make some kind of a sensor, like a motion detector with environmental sensor, you could use that enclosure. These ones are like little pucks. Oh, smart car parking enclosures, nylon material, smart city. So you could put a sensor in there and attach it to the ground, below each car parking location. Looks like it's the sort of thing that's tough enough to drive over. Or network appliances. Say you wanted to make a router, then there are router enclosures. Okay, let's see. Wi-Fi router plastic enclosure. Look at this. Router enclosures. And oh, there's one I don't think I've seen before. There's an access point enclosure. Yeah, there's one that looks like a little desktop router. What else do we have? Handheld DIN rail. Okay, so lots of DIN rail. So if you want to design something that goes into a switchboard in an industrial application, hey, there's all these enclosures that you can just buy, and then you design your PCB to fit into it, and it can come out looking like a professional product, even though it might just be like a hobby project or a one-off. So for anyone that is interested in cheap plastic enclosures for specialized purposes, check out chinaenclosure.com. Yeah, product category. This is just showing a few of them. Oh, it's a Raspberry Pi 4. Yeah, they do aluminium cases as well, which I think is a more recent development. When I first came across them a few years ago, they were just doing plastic enclosures. Look at this. This enclosure is intended for mounting a LoRa gateway up on a pole somewhere. So, yeah, and they'll do custom cutting and like CNC machining. So if you want, oh yeah, look at this. Cutout, silkscreen printing, laser engraving, UV printing, stickers, membrane keyboards, blah, blah, blah. They can do lots of things. So off the shelf, you can buy these enclosures and then just machine them yourself and put your project in them. Or if you have enough quantity, you can say, I need machining for switches and displays and stuff, and they'll do it for you. But their catalog is mind-boggling. It's last time I looked at it, I think my memory of the numbers may be way off, but they had something insane, like 5,000 different case designs that you could pick from. It's like ridiculous. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay, Evernote still exists? Yes, Evernote does. I use Evernote all the time. It's yes. I won't chase that squirrel. Yeah. I used to use Apple Notes when I was exclusively using Apple devices, but now that I use an Android phone, I needed something that would work across different different platforms. For some reason, even though I killed DroidCam on my phone, it is still running. I actually killed the process, and it's still there and chewing through my battery. All right. Oh, Stephen says you need to supply CAD drawings for whatever customization you want them to do. Yeah. Lured away from the dark side. No, I just couldn't afford it. I would gladly have an iPhone. But They're just so friggin' expensive. I think I am past time, and there is some important stuff I need to do for a client that I really should get onto today, which I'm going to get into straight after this. So before wrapping up though, where is this access point project up to? I had been hoping that I would do a little bit more of this. So as you've seen, I have got to the point of finishing the assembly. All of the electronics is 100% assembled on this. You can see that there are some missing footprints, but that doesn't matter. That's actually just because I have dual footprinted some stuff on here. And this is now complete in terms of having the MAC address ROM. It's got the EEPROM required for the Raspberry Pi hat standard. It's got a temperature sensor on it. I can't even remember which one of these is which. I think that's the temperature sensor. These two are EEPROMs. It's got the Ethernet interface on it. Power over Ethernet is working. Power from the DC jack and from PoE is working. The VREGs work. And I haven't got to the point of testing the LEDs yet. But it's at the point now where I can plug a Pi into it and power it up. And I've actually had this working like during the week, about a week ago. I had this plugged in. I've got a, where is it? Just here. I've got the mini HDMI to HDMI converter, so I had a monitor plugged into it. Oh, and that's the other thing. The really cool thing now about having this larger ATEM is I can have a dedicated input channel for things like the video feed coming from things like the Pi. So what I want to do is for next time I'm working on this, I want this this feed, the output from the Pi, to actually be going into the ATEM, and then you can see the screen. So yeah, so many cool things about having all these extra inputs on that ATEM. It means I'm going to be able to pull more things into the stream and let you see them rather than try to point a camera at stuff. And then I've got the OTG adapter, the on-the-go USB adapter, so that I can plug in a keyboard and things. So we're at the point now of messing around with the with Linux on this, with Raspbian. Is this Raspbian? Yes, I think this has a Raspbian image on it. So now it is setting up the overlay to talk to the WIZnet chip and driving the LEDs. When driving the number one thing, if we can't talk to Ethernet, nothing else matters. That's the critical thing. Got to get that working. And then secondarily, there are nice things like driving the LEDs, talking to the temperature sensor to get some environmental information, and then we kind of have ourselves a functioning access point. So that is the next stage. So I think the next part of this is really just going to be the device sitting there powered up, and we're going to be screwing around on the command line, trying to get it to talk to the WIZnet chip. Yeah, Mitchell says we need to sort that UT61E new UI for your new stream setup. There's a new UI? There is? Cool. Yeah. Cable Tie says to Iggy, I'm finding it difficult to believe that the screen fold technology can actually work for any period of time without breaking. I know that when I first heard about the whole thing about we're going to make foldable phones, that just sounded like such bullshit to me. It's like, how can you make something that is going to be repeatedly folded over the period of several years of the lifetime of the product and not have that as a failure point? It's supposedly they've done it. It's one of those things where if they hadn't done it, and they hadn't, obviously they've stress tested it because they'd run test rigs that would just repeatedly open and close them and see what happens to it. They've probably done tests that are way beyond the expected lifetime of the product. Well, they'd better have. But I just keep thinking, imagine a year or two from now when there are all these people with phones that are going to be failing along the bend point. I don't see how it's not going to happen. Yeah. Oh, Scott says, I had a foldable phone decades ago. StarTAC for the win. Yeah. Yeah. I really liked that form factor. Before the trend towards just a big slab of glass sort of phone, my favorite form factor was the little flip phones, you know, the ones that were quite short. So you flip them open and then it would end up as a normal phone, but it meant that you could just flip it closed with your finger and then shove it in your pocket because they were really small and very strong, because once they're closed, all of the sensitive stuff like the keyboard and the screen and everything is enclosed within the clamshell. And yes. Right. Yeah, Richard pointed out it's called engineered obsolescence. Yes. I didn't want to mention that, but that is, of course, the slightly more cynical view, which is they're expecting these things to die after about 2 years. Now, what they want to do is have them die after warranty period plus N months, for whatever value of N it is for their comfort level. All right. Chip says, I broke 2 flip phones. Okay. I'm going to go. This has been such a... I was going to say it's been such a weird live stream. It's felt weird to me, but I'm sure it's been just the same sort of level of randomness as usual for everybody else. It's been very non-technical. Oh, Mitchell says, I posted in Discord the new UI. Ooh. Yeah. Right. And Cable Tie says, N has to be something that the ACCC will be happy with. Yeah. Warranty plus N months. Yeah, Mitchell, I am excited to get back into the OXRS stuff. I really want to do that. Yes. I'm just wondering if there's anything else I should wrap up with. Last minute thoughts. I don't know. Just that there is so much. It's been kind of frustrating recently because there are so many fun and interesting projects that I want to work on. Things like automating Steve and, oops, I need to put a chin strap on it. And the IoT access point. And, well, there's a big list. Lots of things. But as many of you are very well aware, over the last couple of months, my life has been a little bit bizarre. And I really just had to focus on dealing with the things that I have to deal with, not the things I want to deal with. So no room in the margins for doing these interesting things. But hopefully soon I will get back to doing the interesting things as well. Yep. Chip says, I want to be there next week to help randomize the stream. Now, next week, Josh is going to be my guest on the stream. So that means that next week I can't do any of the access point stuff. If I get a chance, I think I'm going to mess around with the access point a bit in the meantime, because I want to... It's probably more useful showing you something that's semi-working than just starting from nothing and 2 hours of frustration of not getting anywhere. But next week, Josh will be on the stream. We're going to go through the OXRS hardware that he sent me, and that'll be interesting. And I do want to see that new UI, so I'm going to check that out. So next week, the stream is going to be an OXRS theme. All right. All right. I'm going to go and get back to doing the commercial stuff that is critical and urgent and that I really need to be doing. So thanks for coming along. Oh yeah, so when I did the intro, there was no audio. That is because I moved the configuration of my old ATEM onto the new ATEM, and it looks like things aren't quite working properly. So there'll probably be no audio on the exit either, but we'll see. It may work. I don't know. I'll press this button, and hopefully it will do what it's meant to. Okay, have a fantastic week. Go and build something awesome. Thanks for coming.